So Mother's Day has come around again. And each year I mention I really like the way that we talk about it as being Mothering Day. It invites us to include all of the people who have taken care of us, fed us comforting foods, listened to our sorrows and our celebrations, all the achievements, being there when we needed them most. And I like the way mother and activist Valerie Carr describes it. She says, mothering is a capacity that resides in each of us. It's not a biological destiny, nor confined to a sphere of life. Each of us has the ability to mother others and ourselves, to nourish and to nurture and to care and to set free. So today, you might be thinking about the mother who brought you into this world. You may be thinking about the mothering relationships that have guided you through the chapters of your life. The truth is, Mother's Day will always stir deep and sometimes complex emotions. Thinking about our mothers might lead us into waves of nostalgia and resurfacing happy memories, and inevitably some regrets. We might be wishing that we could return to the best days, or wishing that we could redo the hard ones. This day can pull us back into the past. But I think our question for today is, can it also propel us forward into the future? And I think our gospel readings are speaking to this today as well. Now, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all include the same stories in some form. So these sayings, these words of Jesus and these stories must have been very important to the early Christian communities. But then I started wondering, why did Matthew put these two together? They're not together in the other Gospels. Do they have a common theme that he just didn't want his readers to miss? And I think the answer is yes, because these stories are both about fear of the future, about fear of change, or fear of moving forward into new places and new possibilities. Matthew starts us with this conversation one day after Jesus has been teaching and healing the crowds who had gathered around him. And he told his disciples, it's time to get in their boat. We're going to cross over to the other side of the sea. And the scribe comes up to him and says, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." And his response is, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Why would he respond with that? I think it seems he's saying that recognize the future is uncertain. He's asking this follower if he's really ready to leave the past behind. And then as they're getting on the boat, another disciple says, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father, and then I'll follow." And Jesus said, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead," which, sounds kind of harsh. But most likely, the man asking to go bury his father didn't mean that his father was already dead. Rather, most likely he felt that he had a responsibility to keep his life the way that it was until after his father passed away. Then maybe he could do something bold and different. These requests and responses seem to revolve around our longing for the safety of home, wishing to stay where we feel comfortable, and focusing on the past. Now, appreciating our past and all that has brought us to this point in life is important. And caring for our parents goes all the way back to the Ten Commandments. Yet there is the past that motivates, and there is the past that holds us back. There's the kind of reminiscing that reminds us of the people who formed us and encouraged us to grow and taught us to move forward. And then there's the kind of looking back that is a distraction, a way of avoiding the fear of what the future might hold. I think this fear is what's at the center of this conversation, but it's also the same fear that flows into the next event. So next, Jesus and the disciples get in that boat and they start sailing towards the other side of this body of water because there's people who need them in another town, in another land. And suddenly a windstorm arises, and it's not a little one. It's so great that the boat is being swamped by the waves, and somehow Jesus is sleeping through it. So they go to him and they wake him up and say, "Save us, we're perishing." And it might be easy for us to miss the intensity of their fear. We've mapped the seas, we've charted the oceans, we know pretty much what is out there. And the way we think of it, storms don't really come up out of nowhere. You can check the weather predictions on your phone any time of day and decide whether you're going to go out or stay home. Boat captains now can locate where storms are brewing and make plans to go around them. But that was not the case in our story. As it's told, the sea was a mystery, and it was a dangerous mystery. And because of that, deep within our ancestral memory, deep waters represent dangers, things we can't control, both outside of us and also what lies within us. The sea is a metaphor for chaotic forces that threaten to undo our attempts to keep life in order. The sea stands for all the things that we fear, but we just can't name directly. And I know at times life feels like we are floating on this sea of chaos in fragile boats, just barely separating us from danger. The disciples were wishing they hadn't left the safety of land. As the winds were driving the sea into a fury and the waves were crashing on their boat, they're wondering, was this trip really necessary? Couldn't we just stay home? There is danger in leaving the safety of what we know and attempting to cross to the other side, whatever that other side might be. In their attempts to cross to the other side, the goal was to bring hope and healing to unknown places. But the forces within the sea stir the waters, and it's enough to terrify the most veteran sailors. But, they were experienced sailors. They've dealt with storms before, but here their fear has them frozen in place. And we think about the larger picture, the larger events. I think it's funny how Jesus keeps pushing them out on their own. We might say, like a mother bird, pushing them out of the nest to fly on their own. This time he has pointed them in the direction they need to go, and he takes a nap. Jesus trusts the disciples that they can lead him across the sea to the other side. And just a chapter earlier, he sent them out and he gave them the power to heal, to even cast out demons. They have the power to face the forces in this life that stir up trouble. They just don't believe it. And this time they panic and they wake him and they accuse him of not even caring about their welfare because they know he can fix it. Which might explain why he says, "Why are you afraid and why do you still have no faith?" He may be thinking, I have been teaching you how to deal with the problems that life brings, but they, like us, would rather just leave the difficult stuff to God. They didn't seem to even try to face these problems, to tackle what was happening. Jesus is in the back of the boat. He will save us. They know he can handle whatever comes. They have faith in him. But Jesus has called these disciples, teaching them, showing them by example, sending them out, encouraging, empowering them to face whatever life brings. He believes that he has it within them to live like him. He's given them the power to heal hurting people, to proclaim the good news of God's love, and they are still afraid. And often, like these disciples, we trust in his word to bring power to life, but we don't trust God's power in us. We too are wondering, will we weather the storm if we have to cross that boundary? Maybe it's safer just to stay right where we are. And today, with all that's going on in the world, we might not believe that we have the power to stand up to the fearmongers, to the forces of prejudice, to the hatred and the bigotry and the violence that we see around us every day. So we don't rebuke them. Instead, we huddle down in the bottom of our boats in fear of the storms around us, waiting for God or someone else to change things. So I think this story is not really about Jesus' power to change the weather. It's about God's power to change the world through us. But this requires that we face our fears, that we feel those fears, that we choose to move forward into the future, whatever that future brings. Miriam Greenspan is writing about the emotions that we try to avoid, and this is one of them we really try to avoid. Saying we can't heal what we don't feel. When we don't know the contours of our fear, when we can't experience it authentically or speak about it openly, we are more likely to be afflicted with anxieties and destructive behaviors. Like pain, fear is a wake-up call that says, pay attention. It's not fear, but it is the fear of fear that becomes a problem. When we're afraid of feeling the fear, when we are unconscious of its hold of us, when we avoid it, then we can't use it, we can't move through it. That's when we become frozen in the fear of fear. But when we are capable of facing it, of fully feeling it, we become open to the secret of joy. When we allow ourselves to feel the fear without denying it, without running from it, we are able to choose then to act from love rather than fear. We can move through the fear into whatever the future brings, whatever storms threaten to overwhelm us. We can move out of love. Which brings us back to Mother's Day. We can revisit our past and celebrate our mothers without holding on to that past, without hiding in the comforts of home. Alternatively, also, without holding on to the hurts and the regrets from the mothering we didn't receive. So maybe those harsh words that Jesus utters, let the dead bury their dead, are really asking us to unload the parts of the past that are holding us back. Asking us to release the memories that are small and suffocating, letting go of old hurts, allowing healing to take place, making it possible for us to sail into the future, storms and all. Jesus didn't give birth to a child, and yet his life was an example of mothering love. He was listening and comforting, feeling and healing. He was encouraging his followers to believe in their own ability to be a healing, mothering presence in the lives of others. So I want to conclude with the words of Valerie Carr again. She shares her thoughts. As mothering radically expanded my understanding of love, I asked, what happens when we bring a fraction of that kind of love into the world around us? When we see other people's children as our children, love becomes a revolutionary force. The greatest social justice movements in history were anchored in that kind of love. So now I understand my work is part of one great labor for liberation that began with our ancestors, that will continue with our children. And now my question is, in mothering and in justice work, was I brave enough with my love today? What does it look like for me to be braver with my love than ever before? I believe this is Jesus' hope for all of his followers. Be brave with love. And this is what all mothers truly hope for their children as well, that we might acknowledge our fears and sail into the storms of life, bravely sharing the love that we have received, whatever the future holds.